Good morning. Today is Friday, January 17th, 2025. Judaism has beliefs about God that are abstract and therefore very difficult to understand. And we need a way to handle them. Now, if I was to ask you, in the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah prayer that we say every day, so this is the main prayer, we're standing, we take 3 steps forward because we are directly in God's presence when we say these words. If I were to ask you, what is the most important paragraph of that prayer? I think different people would have different opinions. Maybe the paragraph of Shema Kolenu, God, hear our prayers. We want God to hear our prayers. Maybe the paragraph of Modim, where we say, thank you, Hashem. I have so much to be thankful for. Every minute of the day, I'm thankful. On Shabbos, when we substitute a different paragraph in the middle, maybe the Kiddush Hayom, the paragraph that talks about the holiness of the day, where we say that God is Mekadesh es HaShabbos, God sanctifies the Sabbath. We may have different answers to that question, but the halacha is different. Jewish law has a different answer. So this is the Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law by Rabbi Yosef Cairo, who writes as follows: HaMispalel tzarach sheyachavim b'chol habrachos. A person who's praying should have an awareness and a focus for the entire prayer. Because you're talking to God. You shouldn't be daydreaming. You shouldn't be just reading without thinking about it. But it's hard, to concentrate and to stay focused for that whole prayer of the Shemona Esrei. It's hard. If you're not able to have focus for the entire thing, at least you should focus on the first paragraph. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu, Elokei Avosenu, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Yaakov, and the paragraph ends, Baruch atah Hashem, Magen Avraham, blessed are you God, the shield of Avraham. That's the first paragraph. Now, just to clarify, when we talk about kavana here, the intent and the concentration, the focus, we're talking about to know what the words mean. It is essential that I know what the words mean in the first paragraph. The rest of the Amidah, if I don't know the translation of every word, but I have a general idea, Shema Kolenu, God hear my prayers. Modim, thank you, God. I don't necessarily know the translation or the meaning of every single word. That's okay. But in the first paragraph, I've got to know the meaning of every word. It is essential. When we talk about, there's another kind of kavana where I need to have awareness that I'm speaking to God. I need to have awareness that I'm standing before God in prayer. That's essential for the whole thing. But that's not what we're talking about. Here we're talking about understanding the words. So the Shulchan Aruch says, it's absolutely essential that you understand the words of the first paragraph. Why? Why is that the most important? So let's take a look at a passage in our Torah Parsha. This week the Parsha of Shmos, so we read tomorrow on Shabbos. Vayomer Moshe el hu Elokim. Remember, Moshe has just seen the burning bush, and God speaks to him, Moshe, Moshe, and Moshe says, Hineni. We talked about that last night. Vayomer Moshe el hu Elokim, and Moshe says to God, Hinei anochi boel b'nei Yisrael. What you're asking me to do, God, to lead the Jews out of Egypt and to go to Paro. When I go back to the Jewish people, v'amarti lahem, and I will say to them, Elokei avosechem shalachani alechem, the God of our forefathers has sent me to you. V'amru li, they are going to say to me, Ma shemo, what is God's name? So Moshe says to God, Ma emor alehem, Ma omar alehem. What do I tell them? What's your name? Vayomer Elokim al Moshe. So listen carefully to the answer. Excuse me. God says to Moshe, so let's understand. This is what God is saying to Moshe. Eheyeh asher eheyeh. I shall be what I shall be. Then God says, Vayomer ko somar livnei Yisrael. Here is the answer that you should give to the Jewish people. Right? It's as if first God is saying an answer, Moshe, this is the answer for you. But now, what should you tell the Jewish people? Eyeh shalachani aleichem. I am the one that I am sending myself to you. Vayomer od Elokim, and God further said El Moshe to Moshe, Ko somar el bnei Yisrael. This is what you should tell the children of Israel. So this is a second answer to be given to the Jewish people when they ask, what is his name? Hashem Elokei Avosechem. God is the God of our ancestors. Elokei Avraham, the God of Abraham. Elokei Yitzchak, the God of Yitzchak. Elokei Yaakov, and the God of Yaakov. Shalachani Aleichem. That is who is being sent to you now. It's very strange. I mean, there are three answers. God says, Moshe says, what's your name? And God gives three answers. Apparently, the first answer is directed specifically to Moshe. God says to Moshe. The second answer is what God says to tell the Jewish people. And the third answer is what God says to tell the Jewish people. So it's a very simple question. Why are there three answers? It seems like a simple question. What's your name? Three answers. And what do the three answers mean? So I want to share with you the approach of the Chassam Sofer. Rabbi Moshe Sofer, he lived in the early 1800s. Great scholar, teacher, halachic authority. The Chassam Sofer says, how is it possible to know anything about God? I mean, the question itself is impossible. God is unknowable. God is invisible. The chasm between ourselves and God is so great, we can't know anything about God. For example, I'll tell you how to know God. I can tell you by quoting the words of the Malbim, who is paraphrasing the words of the Rambam. You want to know what God is? Hanimtza asher metziuso tolui ba'atzmuso v'lo bezulaso. An existence whose essence is dependent on his essence and not on anything external. Got it? That's God. I confess I have no idea what that means. I don't know. Because it's abstract, because it's very difficult. God says, Moshe, you want to know what my name is? My name is Eyeh Asher Eheyeh. I will be what I will be. Then God says to Moshe, this is what you should say to the Jewish people when they ask you what my name is. Eyeh shalachani aleichem. I will be the one who I'm sending to you. Now, basically, what God is saying to Moshe is, whoever understands that, however deeply, fine. If you are able to philosophically and theologically understand, and it makes sense to you, what the words Eyeh Asher Eyeh means, presumably Moshe had some understanding of it. If you can understand that, fine. Maybe if you're philosophical analyses is not quite as progressed, maybe you'll understand the second one. I am the one who I'm sending to you, being sent to you to take you out of Egypt. Maybe that's something a little bit more concrete. Maybe that's something that a few more people can. It doesn't really say what God is. It says what God's going to do. But maybe some people in their philosophical, theological minds can figure it out. But then God says, this is what you say to the Jewish people. Elokei avosechem, I'm the God of your forefathers. I'm the God of Avraham, I'm the God of Yitzchak, I'm the God of Yaakov, and I'm now coming to you to take you out of Egypt. In other words, you, the Jewish people, you don't know me. You don't know my name. So, except you knew the patriarchs. You know who Avraham was. You know who Yitzchak was. You know who Yaakov was. Everyone knows that. Worship what they worshipped. And worship how they worshipped. And I accept that. That's all you need to know. All you need to know is the patriarchs understood me, and the patriarchs served me, and you know the patriarchs. Just do what the patriarchs did. That's all you need to know. Fascinating. Says the Mechilta, a rabbinic source of Midrash, what halacha, what point of Jewish law comes from this verse, where God's third explanation of what to say to the Jewish people, what is the halachic consequence of that? This line in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, Hamispalel, when you say the Amidah, tzarach sheyachavim b'chol habrachos, v'im einu yachol lechavim b'chulin lepachos yachavim ba'avos. You have to at least know the meaning of the first words, of the words in the first paragraph, because that's the paragraph that says, blessed are you, God, the God of Avraham, the God of Yitzchak, the God of Yaakov. That's what the paragraph is about. And Rabbi Avraham Pam explains that the first paragraph of the Amidah is the most critical because it answers the question, to whom am I speaking? I'm standing up. I took 3 steps forward. I'm in the direct presence of who? What? And when you say, I'm in the direct presence of the God of Avraham, the God of Yitzchak, the God of Yaakov, that's enough. That suffices, just like it suffices in our Parsha. I don't know what to call him. I don't know what his essence is. His essence is dependent on internal, not ex. I don't know that. But I know Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. And they understood. All I have to do is to worship God the way they worship God. That's all I have to do. And that's why that paragraph is so central, because that's the paragraph that answers the question, to whom am I speaking? In other words, says Rapam, listen, you could spend your whole life trying to understand God's essence. What does Ehyeh mean? Trying to understand those words of the Malbim quoting the Rambam. You could spend your whole life trying to understand that, and you should spend your whole life trying to understand that. But when you say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, it's enough if you have a rough idea before whom you are standing. And if you don't grasp that, then you have nothing. The first answer, the second answer, you could try to work it out. their commentaries, their essays, their books. You could try to work it out. But meanwhile, this afternoon at 4:22 at ADATH and everywhere else, there's mincha. There's the afternoon prayer. And we've got to stand up and take 3 steps forward and start speaking to whom? Whom? Speaking to whom? So I'll just tell you, I don't know about you, but at 4:22 this afternoon, and it's a Friday afternoon, and it's going to be a busy day, and it's going to be a busy Shabbos for me. At 4:22 this afternoon, I don't know what Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh means. I don't know what existence in essence. I don't know what it means. But I do know Avraham. I understand. I know Avraham, who understood God's essence enough to know that the greatest service to God is to serve others. I know that. I know Yitzchak. I know Yitzchak understood God's essence enough to realize that we may be called upon to give up our life in order to follow God's commands. I know Yaakov. I know Yaakov understood enough of God's essence to realize that the greatest goal in life is to raise a family who will all want to serve God. I know them. And I want to serve who they served and how they served. I want to speak directly to whoever it is they spoke to. And even I should be capable of that at 4:22 on a Friday afternoon. That's why this first paragraph of the Amidah is essential, because it borrows from the verse in our Parsha, and it gives the answer that is most accessible. Who is God? What does God want? The most accessible answer is in the words of the first paragraph of the Amidah, and that's why those words are essential, without which prayer cannot be meaningful. I've shared with you many times before that I think in too many places, among too many people today, we're not doing so great with prayer. We're not doing so great at making prayer meaningful and moving as it should be. And we've discussed this before. The problem has many parts, many causes. I've shared with you before my opinion that the decorum problem, talking in shul, is not the source of the problem. I think it's a symptom. I think the main problem, from which all others flow, is that we don't clearly know to whom we are speaking. And so we're just reading from a book. So if we can seriously work on that, and with Chassam Sofer, it's realistic to do so. That is, if every time I had to stand in prayer, I had to philosophically and intellectually understand Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, God's first answer to Moshe, I don't know where I would be. But with Chassam Sofer, it's at least realistic. If we could focus on that, I believe we can make significant and meaningful headway to reclaim prayer as the most spiritually uplifting Jewish activity. I hope it works for you, and I hope it works for me. My friends, I wish you a great day and a beautiful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.